back to another episode of Eye of the Storm, a Guelph Storm podcast with myself, Ryan Drury, the voice of the Guelph Storm on Rogers TV. And we're going back to the beginning. He was our very first guest on this show. And why not sit down with him right before the playoffs get started? Very pleased to welcome back the head coach of the Guelph Storm, Chad Wiseman. Chad, how are you?
Ryan, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing great. Yeah, man, thanks for doing this again. It's been a while since we chatted on the show. Like I said, you were the very first guest on the podcast. And, you know, as you kind of sit here and reflect back on that, the playoffs, they start tonight. You guys are in the Soo to take on the Greyhounds for game one. As you sit here and reflect back on how the regular season went, what are some things that come to mind?
I mean, a lot of adversity, or, we refer to the word turbulence. And, I think we even touched on that at the beginning of the year, that how do you prepare for that turbulence? And it's inevitable. It's going to happen throughout a year with every team, you as an individual, as an athlete in any sport. I thought we had a real strong start. Obviously missing Poitras there was hurt offensively, the opportunity to generate more offense, especially 5-on-5. So that was a big loss, but an opportunity for a lot of guys to step up and play extra minutes and play in situations that maybe they weren't familiar with in the past. And obviously we hit that turbulence maybe 8 weeks ago, where injuries started to compound, and man games lost, and do some suspensions in there, and again, that was it was about a tough 12-game stretch for our group, probably more mentally than anything else. But I believe we came out of it stronger. We're prepared. We're a mentally tough team. We've played in a lot of close games all year. We've been defensively responsible, so we believe that we've prepared and built for the playoff run here.
Well, and your play over the last couple weeks would be very indicative of that. A very strong finish to the season, 6th place finish for the Storm, just 1 point out of 5th. I know everybody was very excited about potentially playing those Highway 7 rivals, the Kitchener Rangers, but instead you get the Soo Greyhounds, who you guys had some great battles with this year. And, you look forward now at the playoffs here. And as we sit here on the morning of game one, as you look at your opponent across the rink from you, as you're in their home barn, what kind of comes to mind in terms of who the Greyhounds are and what you guys need to do to be successful against them?
You know what you're getting with the Soo. I know John, their coach, real well, and their style of play and philosophies, and their team that drafts specific players. They play with pace. They're fast. They're skilled. They're D or mobile. They join the rush. For us, it's being over top of those pucks or over top of those outs, being defensively responsible and slowing them down, clogging up the neutral zone, making sure that they've got a stay at the outside, not losing any middle ice. They're a team that wants to get to the middle of the ice as often as they can. That's where it's tougher to make decisions and reads. So if we can do a good job of slowing them down, keeping them to the outside, and obviously keeping them off the power play, will give us a good opportunity to be competitive in this series.
Obviously, you mentioned the ups and downs throughout the season, and with a young team, with a lot of new guys coming in, that's to be expected. But, February aside, the team had a really strong season when you consider all those injury problems that you guys ran into. You didn't see Cam Allen until way late in the season. Michael Bushinger had injury problems. Braden Hislop still sidelined, of course, which is unfortunate. But when you look at the team and you talk about how defensively responsible you guys were all year, you were a top defensive team even through all those struggles. When you consider that, and the fact that you had to have a lot of rookies play in your lineup this year, up and down at different spots, particularly on that back end, when you reflect back on that fact, you must be incredibly proud as a head coach to have seen the guys react the way they did. Your captain, Braden Bowman, often says to us, we bend, we don't break. And I think that the play of your young players this year in particular is a really good example of that, Chad.
Yeah, and that starts with good leadership in the room, and as coaches, we can only do so much. There's a amount of accountability that we can hold towards a group, but once they figure out the accountability comes from within the group, which I believe that this group has done with the leadership of guys like Bowman and Bushinger and Carabella and Ochenko and Hislop even being out of the lineup. The growth and development you've seen from our young guys, just not from a development standpoint on the ice, getting those minutes, but learning from those guys off the ice, learning from watching those guys being on the bench, how they play, how they prepare, how they practice every day. It's been a really important year for us. Obviously, the standings we would love have been a little bit higher, but from a development standpoint, where we had 4 16-year-olds in the lineup most nights, including 3 17-year-olds, the minutes that they got to play, the situations they got to play in, the support that they received from the older leadership group, knowing like, hey, we need these younger guys to play these minutes, and there's going to be mistakes because that's part of the game, and that's how we grow and that's how we develop. So really proud of this group. Again, we fought through that turbulence that we knew we would hit at some point in the season. We believe we've come out a better team, a stronger team, and a mentally tougher team. That gives us a small advantage here going into the playoffs.
And Chad, that development, it goes to the bench as well. I mean, obviously your second full season as head coach, and then you look onto your benching staff and you've got Rob Collins there, who of course I had a bit of history with before he joined the Storm, tracking his career in the GOJHL, and ditto for Dan Fitzgerald. As the team and the players ride those ups and downs throughout the year, the coaching staff has to do the same thing. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with your staff, because it seems like you guys are a really tight unit.
We are. We work well together. We work off of each other well. I mean, I have a relationship with Rob going back to the American League when we started playing against each other in the early 2000s. So I've known Rob for quite some time. I actually met Dan at a Hockey Canada course before we started our OHL careers, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. So that was our first time we crossed paths. Everyone here works hard. They're committed to being a hockey coach, committed to making players better. Love what they do. And it's tough. It is mentally taxing, not just on the players, but the staff coming to the rink every day. You're trying to find solutions. You're trying to trust your process. You're trying to stick to your process. You have your belief structure, your systems, and it's really easy to try to deviate from that process when things start to go sideways or that turbulence hits. And it's no different for us as a staff. When that turbulence hits, we need to trust our process, stay with it, believe in what we're doing, and stay focused on that. So I'm really fortunate to have a fantastic staff, and I really enjoy working with them. We enjoy coming to the rink every day, and there's no staff member here that's allergic to work. So I really appreciate obviously their support, what they've done this year, and look forward to working with them in the future.
Well, you're not allergic to it either, Chad. I mean, you're sitting down with me in the morning on a playoff game day, so I appreciate you doing this. And
No problem. No problem.
Mentioning that coaching staff, it's through way of an unfortunate injury, though. Through that way, though, it's kind of added an extra member, and that's veteran Braden Hislop, who, of course, was part of that great ceremony last week celebrating the 3 overagers. And unfortunately, he's sidelined with an injury. But ever since he went down, he's been a fixture down there in that sharp burgundy suit. And, for yourself, having a guy that's a veteran like that and such a smart defensive player, what's he kind of been able to bring to the bench? Obviously he's going to be a guy that kind of calms guys down and is able to kind of relay the message a little bit to the players. But what's he bring? Does he have a future as a coach, do you think?
I think Braden he has a bright future in anything he does because he's not allergic to work. He's a natural competitor, and he wants to compete at anything he does. I think he's the kind of guy who probably plays cards with his family at home on Christmas Eve and throws the cards at deck when he doesn't win a hand. So that's in his nature. That's who he is. We give him a hard time about the burgundy suit. We always ask him if he's actually wearing that on the bench, and he gets a little chuckle out of it. But he's a big piece of our group, our leadership group. He's a glue of our group. You won't find a better competitor in practice. Obviously, that translates to a game. The accountability factor that he'll hold in a positive way. He pulls people up and doesn't push them down. And I really thought it was important to get him on the bench. We obviously had to get league approval for that. One, just to be part of the group. He supports the group. He wants to be there with them. And then it's an opportunity to grow and develop as a young person, maybe as a coach. But I think the one thing, if you ask him what he's taken from it, is he sees the games through a different lens now, and that coaching lens is a little different than the player's lens. And now he's starting to ask questions, between periods or after games. Well, why is he doing this, or why did we do this? And we just say, that's coaching, Hissy. Like, we don't know. We don't have all the answers. But now you can see the difference for which lens you're looking through. So it's an opportunity for him to learn and grow and be part of the group. And we really appreciate having him around.
You talked a little bit about obviously having that great leadership core, which he was a big part of, being an OA. And, your other two overagers who thankfully are healthy and are big parts of your lineup. Obviously, Chandler Romeo, and of course, the captain, Braden Bowman, the man that we like to call the bone collector in the Royal City. Tell us a little bit about what those guys have brought all year and just how important those guys have been. And, you've been around them for a long time now, Chad. Pretty special guys in terms of what they bring to an OHL roster.
Yeah, but I think professionalism is the word that comes to mind for all three of them. A guy like Chandler, who's been in the league for 5 years, he's a big body, long stick. He's great with the young guys, communicates really well. You always know what you're getting with Chandler. The effort's always there. The willingness is always there. That just overall attitude, the ability to kind of reset and refocus. Bones you have had since he came into the league, and obviously he's our captain. And I don't know if you'll find a better guy who has better pro-like habits on the ice every day. He does everything right all the time. I'm not saying he doesn't make mistakes, but the intention's always right. And he's really grown. I'm proud. He's grown as a leader. It's not easy to wear a captaincy at any level in any sport. It's a big task. It's a big ask for a young man to lead the way and try to hold your friends and teammates accountable. And there's a learning curve there. And I think that he's really, really figured it out here the last few months and become the leader that we've always known that he was.
Yeah, well, and we've been saying it all year. I think that guy's a pro hockey player. I mean, you played pro, Chad, and you would know better than me, but I just think that guy's got a pro contract written all over him in his future. I really do.
Well, we hope that for all of our athletes, and we believe in them and we believe in him. But again, his habits on the ice, his decision making ability is pro like. He understands the clock management, puck management, score of the game. He does the little things. If you really watch him, he does the little things better and more consistently than anybody, and that's why I think he'll have a pro career.
I don't want to look too far forward, obviously, into the future because the focus is on the Soo Greyhounds here, as it should be. But when you consider all the contributions from younger players, you detailed, obviously, the rookies, the 17-year-olds, and you look at your defensive record this year and how stout your team has played. As you look forward, it must excite you as a head coach to see the foundation that's being laid with the young guys and understand that, I think that it's hard to teach guys, especially at this level, how to play defense. And it seems like you've already got a pretty good foundation here where the young players really understand how the system works and how you expect them to play. That's really got to excite you moving forward.
Yeah, our scouting staff has brought in some really good young elite people and continue to do that every year. And especially this last group of 16-year-olds that have come in and not just played, but made differences in a lot of different games this year. But again, I think the cultural part of that is the foundation that's built from the guys that were here before, Cooper Walker, Ben McFarland, how we did things last year, the expectation of what it is to be a Guelph Storm player when you put the jersey on and how we're going to play. And those are non-negotiables. And that's carried down from generation to generation, or leadership group to leadership group, from last year to this year with the Bowmans and the Carabellas and now Luchenko and these players that are part of our future, and Cam Allen, obviously, and then the young kids come in and they're going to learn the right way. Cultures that are broken, the young kids come in or young athletes come in and they're learning the wrong way to do things. And naturally it's a learned behavior. You're going to carry on those habits to the next level. And that's your foundation. So there's probably a crack in it. And we believe that our foundation started last year with players like Cooper Walker, Ben McFarland, Murray, and guys like that. So it's been carried on and passed down now. And there's a new crop of 16-year-olds come in that are 16 and 17-year-olds next year are going to teach them the right way to do things.
Absolutely. And, I wish we had time to kind of talk about all your players. We don't. But one guy I do want to highlight here because, literally before we got on here, The Athletic put out their updated top 64 prospect list. And a guy that's made a lot of noise this year for a lot of great reasons is Jet Luchenko. Now, they have him ranked at number 32. He obviously had a great top prospect showing, finished first in the on-ice testing there. And he's really turned a lot of eyes with his performance this year. I firmly believe that he's a first-round talent. As the coach who's had this guy all year and seen his sophomore year and the game blossomed so much. I'm an NHL scout or a general manager. Sell me on Jet Luchenko going in the first round.
Well, I'll probably sound like a biased parent talking about my kid. So again, I've been fortunate enough to work with Jet for the last 2 years, seeing the effort, the commitment, the discipline that was put in from last season, the off season to now was life changing for him. The effort and what he would have had to do, the discipline he would have had to have all summer to put the size and strength on and power that he did is it's an elite mindset, and he comes to the rink every day. I think if there's one word that I could describe Jet would be humility. He's just an incredibly smart kid, humble, kind, just a good teammate, comes to the rink, does the right thing all the time, has pro-like habits. I mean, obviously his on-ice performance speaks for itself. We've also put him in a tough situation this year. He's a young man that plays at the top of our lineup, plays arguably the most minutes for any forward, and has the hardest matchups every single night. We go into London or to Soo or SAG, and he's playing against their team's top line as a 17-year-old, and that's a big ask at this level. And he's done it, incredibly well. So he's a big part of our future, obviously a leader on our team, and we hope he gets everything he deserves here going into the draft and moving forward his career.
Well, he's put himself in a great position to do so with his play. I mean, he's just electric, especially down the stretch. When he gets chugging north to south, he's a scary guy to try and defend in his own right. Chad, when I had you on at the start of this show, I've been doing this with all your players and chatting with a bunch of different guys. It's been fun getting to know the guys kind of on a more personal level. And, I didn't really get to ask you a lot of these questions that I've levied at them when we chatted. It was a little more business-like, but you played for a long time. You're a pro player. So I'd like to ask you some questions that I've thrown at some of your players throughout the year. Were you a big equipment guy in terms of being superstitious at all? And what were your equipment preferences, stick-wise, skates? Did you have any things that stuck out that you really liked to kind of stick with over the years when you played?
The least amount of equipment the the better for me. I mean, we played in a different era, and anything that was going to slow me down, I didn't want attached to my body. So, I mean, I played until I was about 35 years old, and still used the old shoulder pad cups and nothing protecting the stomach or chest area. Smaller shin pads. And again, I never wanted to be a guy that had a lot of luggage to carry. So, again, I can't tell guys nowadays to trim any of their equipment off, but I look at what they're wearing, and I don't know if I could even play in this era with all that equipment. So I was a Bauer skate guy. I had my own curve. I always called it a 9-iron. There was no toe curve. There was no toe drags. There was nothing fancy. It was I could shoot and stick handle and skate and make plays. But I don't think the curve that I use even exists. If these guys saw it, they would just probably laugh at. They'd probably just laugh at me.
I was having a conversation with somebody the other day at a GOJHL playoff game about curves now and how extreme they've got, and everybody, sees, the OV curve and different stuff like that. I think, and this probably would have translated back to when you were still playing. I would say the most used curve and stick pattern I ever saw, that's Sakic Easton synergy. Everybody at least tried it that I played with. Everybody gave it a try. It might have been the most used stick pattern I've ever seen, where a lot of guys that you played with testing out the Sakic, it was a legendary curve.
That was one of a kind back then, and a popular stick and a popular curve. And I think back then too, there was still the illegal curve. So they were manufactured different because they couldn't be illegal. And nowadays, without the illegal curve, everything's changed. So I think the stick's a big piece of the equipment. We talk about it all the time. Guys in the wrong curve, guys in the wrong flex, or guys in the wrong lie. Now they have so many different options that it's, if I could give any advice to minor hockey parents, as kids want to go onto the rack and grab the Ovechkin curve, well, there's only one Ovechkin in the world. So that's probably not a curve that I would be pushing my son or daughter on. But making sure that your kids fit into the proper stick. Again, flex is important, lie is really important, and curve might be third after that. So, but there's a lot of options out there. The game's changed, and the sticks have definitely changed, that's for sure.
Well, another thing that's changed, and it was really reflected in your team's answers this year. I don't know, when I was playing, and I'm sure when you played, bit of a different vibe dressing room wise with the music. Your group is a big country group. Like it's a pretty hefty country group in there. When I was playing, we were still doing, the Metallica, the Pantera, Rage Against the Machine. What was the routine in your experience in the dressing room, and what would you be throwing on if you were in charge of it?
I was never in charge. I didn't want the responsibility. I'm pretty easygoing. I like that our kids now like the country. It's a little bit easier listening for, as you get older, you don't want to be listening to any of the Metallica or the yelling or screaming, and you just want calm. But there's obviously a need and a time and a place for that. So I appreciate their love for the country, because that's probably something I'd put on now at my age. When I was their age, there would have been no country. But again, I wasn't the radio guy. I was just happy that someone else was doing it. I could focus on the things that were important to me for game day.
Man, and a lot of those songs that were played back then, they're still cranking them out now. A lot of man, I'd be happy. I like the song. If I never heard Enter Sandman ever again, I think all of us might be happier for it. I've asked a lot of you guys too and gotten some really unique answers from some of them. Back when you were playing, a lot of teams are doing it now. If you were to pick a custom goal song, does anything spring to mind?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not the music guy. I don't even know if I could pick one song. It's probably something I'd ask my wife to do for me. So I won't venture out too far and say something that I shouldn't say.
When you're on the bus, I mean, obviously long road trips, including where you are right now in the Soo, are back when you were playing and maybe even now as a coach, like how has the routine changed for you on the trips? And were you a big cards guy back in the day? Were you kind of reading a book? What was your routine like?
I wasn't reading. I didn't start reading probably till the end of my career. Wish I had done more of that early on in my career. It's been a big part of my growth as a coach. Reading, gathering information, educating myself. How to speak to athletes, how to understand athletes better, because they're different era than when I grew up, and obviously a different age demographic than I am now. So I was big into the cards and the bus, and I think it was really important back then, growing up, being younger, is fitting in, being part of the team, and jumping into card games, and just being part of that group was important to me. So I've always loved the travel. I mean, I still love it now. It's a little harder on the body now, but we're still part of a group. I love that, having your own staff as your own team, and having those relationships. So it's something I've had to do my whole life, something that I love doing. I'll do it as long as the body will hold up and allow me to have these long rides up to the Soo.
Yeah, a lot of memories are created on the bus, that's for sure. I'll ask you as well too. I've asked guys just about, maybe their Netflix routine, movies they like. Obviously we all love sports movies. In your opinion, if you could pick one, what's the best sports movie of all time?
I think guys typically tend to go towards Slapshot being a hockey team and a hockey movie. And I haven't seen it in a few years, but I've probably seen it a few dozen times over the years. But there's some good ones out there. Like For Love of the Game is a great baseball movie, one that we've watched probably once a year. We get on for the guys, and you can pull some meanings from it, and there's some value in it. Him going through some adversity and such. And so I really enjoy the baseball movies. And Draft Day is a great one. The boys have watched that a few times. Like, again, looking at it through a different lens of a GM versus a coach versus a player, and the stuff that goes on, whether how accurate that is or not, there's some truth there. So I find that anytime there's some meaning, stuff that you can pull from a movie is educational for the athlete.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Slapshot's a classic. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. But I will say in general, the baseball movies seem to always be the best ones. Baseball's got, they got 30 movies that are all really quality stuff. I'll finally ask you this. You've gone through a lot of growth over the last couple of years, becoming a head coach, all your career as a player and the experience you've accrued. If a young coach or a guy just getting started on their journey to becoming a coach were to see this, what's a couple good pieces of advice you've maybe received over the years, or a lesson you've learned that you would levy at their feet to take in?
Um, just to learn, to educate yourself every day. It's your job, and if you're not getting better every day, then you're falling behind. ask questions, volunteer your time, and just do as much as you can with as many people as you can, and to give yourself an opportunity to learn and grow. And it's advice that I got when I was trying to get in the OHL 7, 8, 9 years ago was do anything and everything you can, volunteer your time, educate yourself. And that's when I started reading books, and getting into video and learning that side of the sport where I was never tech savvy, and to be a coach at this level, especially, you need to be able to cut your own video and be a little bit more tech savvy. So do everything you can, listen, learn, do as much as you can, and be open-minded and to new ideas.
Very sound advice indeed. Well, Chad, it's been a pleasure to deal with you all year long. You've been great to us on the crew, and we really, really appreciate that. Best of luck against the Soo Greyhounds, the whole Royal City Nation, Storm Nation's behind you. Thanks so much for doing this, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime, Ryan. Thank you. Have a great day. We'll talk again.
Absolutely. Remember, everybody, you can find this show on YouTube. You can also find links on the Storm website. And hey, the playoffs are here. And if you want to come down and see the Storm take on the Soo Greyhounds, April 1st, April 3rd, that's games 3 and 4. You can get tickets on the Guelph Storm website or the box office at the Sleeman Center. We'll be back soon with more Eye of the Storm.